But all the usual people that I know, a lot of them aren't here. Like, you guys know faces that aren't here, and they're like, well, it's Christmas party season. So that explains a little bit why they miss out on it. So I will tell things to you guys tonight that they didn't get last time I did this. Last time I did this 10 years ago, 9 years ago. What was the Facebook thing you put out? We were teaching 6 years ago. 6 years. Yeah, yeah. So it's a big difference. I was like, if you go from 120 people down to 30, like, I'm not sure if I'll be back again, right? So, um, so anyway, my whole thing, if you guys know me for a while, is I do real estate for the lifestyle, for the freedom it gives you, for the flexibility. It's nothing about the stuff you see on TV about the big dollars, how many millions of dollars you can get. For me, I measure my wealth in days. How many days can I not go to work and still get paid? That's my measure of wealth. And when that number exceeds my lifetime, then I consider myself, I'm done. It's like, I'm good. So now at this point, I never have to work again in my life. My kids never have to work again after I'm gone. And my grandkids never have to work after they're gone. That's the kind of wealth you can create here. And we got generations of income here in just a few years of work. And corporate America doesn't give you that. I don't care how good you like your boss, you're not getting that deal anywhere. So for me, this is almost out of necessity. This is real estate was my third business venture. The first two ended in disaster, got totally wiped out to zero. One, I had a dishonest business partner who destroyed our company and took all the money and left after 7 years of working and building that up. The second time, another 7 or 8 years there. Internet marketing company, we got destroyed by a competitor. Within 90 days, we lost 8 years of work. So I've been to zero many times. So I've had passive residual income for about a month each time. I got it. I hit the finish line and then it gets destroyed. Start over. 8 more years. I got it. I hit the finish line, destroy it. Start over. So this last time, it was such devastating financial setback, it took me years to dig out of that hole. I had to go get jobs and extra jobs and all that stuff. But I did software development for almost 15 years to get out of that mess. And what really got me going on it was, this is the why. What really got me motivated was we had my dad's 63rd birthday party. And every year, almost every other year, we talk about going to Alaska. And we're going to go and do it. And he was like, I'm coming up. I'm going to take early retirement. Next summer, we're going. We're finally doing it. We've been talking about this since I was 13, and we're finally doing it. 3 weeks later, he died of a brain aneurysm. And that hit me right here because, I was like, I am not going to be at my birthday talking about something I'm going to do one day and not get to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to live that way. So I decided right then, I was 43, my dad was 63. I said, I'm getting out of the corporate America. I'm done. I'm going to figure it out. So I went on a mission. I found the people who had the lifestyle I wanted in our neighborhood, and all of them were doing real estate of some kind, mostly rental real estate. So I don't know anything about real estate, but I know I can get my lifestyle that I want out of it. And this was what drove me. I wanted out of the corporate. I worked on West Oxmoor Road, and I lived in Odenville, and I had to be there at 7 a.m. every day. And 459, you guys know all the local traffic. It sucks. And I came home every day, angry, every day. Like, I can't believe I had to do that again. So that was driving me. So my neighbor, named Randy, he didn't want to give me too much information. He wasn't really sure I was going to be a competitor or whatever. But he said, if you'll pay cash for your houses, you'll get a discount. And the banks will loan you up to 70% of the value. That's the only training I had in real estate, those two sentences. And I didn't know groups like this existed. I didn't know people like James existed. We were private lenders that would give you money. And I said, well, how much money do you need? He said, probably 60 grand or more to get started. And I was like, I had a negative net worth at the time. which meant I owed more money on everything I had than it was worth. My house, my car, everything I had, negative. So I was like, I couldn't come up with $100 if to get out of this. So he gave me that number, 60 grand, and he never expected to see me again. I knew he didn't. He thought, well, I'll never see him again. So the only thing I knew to do to come up with money is take another job. So I worked from 7 to 3 in Gadsden, Alabama, and from 4 to midnight in West Oxmoor for a year. From 7 a.m. to midnight every day for a year. That's how I got my money to start with. It's a lot easier now. I can just call somebody. I didn't know that. A year later, I had 50 grand in the bank from that second job. And it was near the end of the year. It was like in December. I got a thing in the mail from my credit card company saying 0% for a year for this check, those little checks you get. And it was for $10,000. And I put that with my 50 and I went back to my neighbor. And I said, I got my money. He was like, you're going to show me what to do, right? And he just looked at me with the strangest look. He was like, I guess we do. I guess I got to show you something. So in January, 2 weeks later, I bought our first house. And I discovered by accident that you could buy the house for cash at a huge discount because you can close immediately. And I just discovered this. I didn't know anybody was teaching it. I discovered that you could just go back to the bank and get a loan and get your money back, like putting a quarter in a vending machine and pulling the quarter back out. And the light bulb went off in my head. It's like, I'm sitting here with a rental house that's making a few $100 a month. I got the money in the bank that I started with just a month ago. I got my money back. How many times can I do this? And it turns out as fast as you can go. That's the limit. I did 7 or 8 the first year, 7 or 8 the next year, and then I retired at the end of the second year. So I was done. I gave a 1-year notice at my job. After the first year when I had 7 done, I said, I can do this. So I gave them a 1-year notice. I'm not coming back a year from now. So, and I never went out and burned my bridges deeply. So, but you got to know why. You got to have a driving for it, because this is hard. I'm telling you, it takes a lot of hours, a lot of time. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's hard to do, but it's worth it. Because what I want you to do before we even talk about real estate, I want you to design, what do you want your life to look like every day? When you wake up, what do you deal with every day? That's my issue. I don't want to deal with stuff, right? So do you want to be on the phone a lot? Do you want to be available all the time? Do you want to talk to people in person? Do you want to have meetings? What do you want to do every day? And for me, I wanted a real estate business that paid monthly income. But I never wanted to talk to tenants. I didn't want the tenants to know who I was. I didn't want to do any maintenance. I didn't want to do any repairs. I don't want to talk to buyers. I don't want to talk to sellers. In fact, I don't want my phone to ring at all. And I want the money to come in on an automated ACH, and I want mortgage payments to go out through ACH because I don't want to write checks and pay bills all the time. And everybody told me it was impossible. It was like, you can't do that. And that's how I designed it. I designed it first that way. Before I bought the first house, I had all that planned out, how it was going to work. That's the reason it did work, because I took the time to design that first. And I'll show you kind of how all the pieces came together. I could make a lot more money today if I did more in my business, but I really like people not knowing who I am. I really like that. We talked about that on the way up here. I was getting my hair cut in Moody a few months ago. You believe it or not, it does grow. The lady cut my hair. I asked her where she lived, and she started telling me it was one of my rental houses. And I was like, oh, how do you like the place? How do you like the people you're renting it from? And it's like, no idea. Never knew it. So I like being the anonymous. I don't want to talk to those people. They're never going to call and tell me everything's okay. They're never going to call and say, just Merry Christmas. We had a good year. They're always going to call with a problem. I don't want to talk to them. So design the life first. That's how the whole thing starts. So BRRRR, you've heard it over and over and over again. For the new people in the room, you may not know what it is. This is the process we're going to go through. The first thing we're going to do is buy a house. I don't care what it is, where it is, how much it costs, any price range. It's got to be at a discount. And when I say discount, I mean big discount, because I'm going to show you the percentages we got to have to make it work. But you're going to buy it at a discount with cash. I'm going to show you how to get the cash or come up with it. I know a lot of you won't take a second full-time job, so I'll show you another way to do it. We're going to rehab it and repair it enough We're not going to flip it. We're going to do it enough to make it comfortable and safe and presentable. We're not remodeling the whole thing. We're going to make it a nice, clean, safe rental house. Get it rented out or put it up for rent, and then we're going to go right back to a bank, a local lender, and ask for a loan for whatever money we spend on it, and we're going to get all of our money back. And we're just going to do that over and over and over again. I've done it 63 times in a row. And I do 4 or 5 a year. I've been doing them 4 or 5 a year for 10 years. So here's what it takes, though. You got to have the basics to get started. You got to have, because you're going to go to the bank and get a loan when you first start, you don't have any rental income, you're going to have a job with documented income to get the mortgage. You got that. There's no way around it. You can't get long-term permanent financing without some kind of credit. This is only for the first few, because eventually you have rental income that you can count. But for the first couple, you need a job. I can't even say that word even. You got to have some kind of documented income. You got to have at least decent credit enough to get through the lending process. You don't have to go through all of underwriting. It can be 1099 contract income for my lenders. They don't really care where the money comes from. It doesn't have to go through Fannie Mae and go through the whole documentation process. You need cash or access to cash. This is what's different now than it was when I started. I thought you had to have cash, but you just need access to it. And then you need somebody at the end to give you the long-term financing at the end of the whole thing. This is the key to the whole, this is where you get your money back. This is who I use, Emily Norris out of Union State Bank in Pell City. She does all of my lending. You can tell her I said that. Lyman is from my local market, by the way. We're friendly competitors. We found out it's better to partner with each other than compete, right? So anyway, he knows Emily, and we all use that bank here locally. And if you don't have the motivation and resources to go find her phone number and contact info, this is not the business for you anyway. So that's why I didn't give you her number. And then you need a few years to get it done. You need at least 3 years to get out of a job starting at zero. These are my numbers. I figure most people can only turn their money over 3, 4, 5 times a year at best. So you're going to need at least 3 years to get this done. So here's the percentage. Here's where it all breaks down to. People ask me all the time, well, how do you make it work in today's market? The only thing different is the interest rates have gone from 6% to roughly 8 or 9%, 3%. That's the difference. So your monthly payment has gone up $100 or something. So it's not dramatically different, but you got to pay maybe 5 or 10% less than you did a few years ago for the house to make it work. That's the difference. So I'm going to show you the percentages that I use, and every time I've ever violated these percentages, it doesn't work. It just doesn't. It doesn't cash flow. The first thing is, people ask me, how much can you pay for a house? And my only question is, how much does it rent for? And I mean, there are markets where it doesn't work. Like in California, you say, well, it rents for $5,000. Well, great, but it costs $3 million. There's no way to make that work. You can't do it there. You're limited by the rent in your market. And the rents follow the value of the property pretty much linearly until the higher prices, they start to diverge, where the price keeps going up and the rent will cap out at a certain amount. And in every market, people aren't going to pay more than a certain amount of rent, no matter how nice the house is. So you need to know what your rent's going to be before you go to try to buy a house. Your mortgage payment cannot be more than half of that rent. I've proven this over and over and over, and I'll stand by it. I'll even testify in court over it. If you're renting for $1,200, your mortgage payment cannot be more than $600. It cannot be more than half. Mortgage cannot be more than half of the rent, or else it just won't work. No, this is just mortgage to your lender. This is Emily Norris's payment. Can't be more than 50% of your rent. Because here's what's we're going to add to that. We're going to add management in for 10%. You can't have a lifestyle without having a good manager. And we're going to add maintenance cost in. You're going to have to keep money for maintenance. And then we got taxes and insurance, which is what we just asked about on top of that. So you add all this together, 70 to 80% of your rent is already taken. This is why it doesn't work. because people are thinking they can pay 70% of retail because the bank will loan me 70%, means I can borrow 70%, and they try to make it work. And if your mortgage payment is 70% of your rent, and then you add all of this together, you got nothing. You're zero. You've got to keep your mortgage below 50%. I try for 40%, but it's got to be below 50. Because after all this is added together, the best you're going to get is 20 to 30% of your rent. You guys know this is how you win Monopoly, the game of Monopoly? How many people know that you can mortgage properties in Monopoly? You may ever play that way? Some people. Yeah, you buy a boardwalk. First thing I do, even in Monopoly, I flip that card over and get my money back. Flip the card over, and guess what? When it's mortgaged in Monopoly, you don't get any rent. That rule has been true since the beginning, since that game was invented in 1930 something, 1920. If you got a mortgage, you're not making much rent. That's just the way. So even in Monopoly, when you mortgage your property and you get your money back, you don't get rent. So on a $1,200 rent, we're only talking net to you $200-300 after everybody else gets paid. And then you say, well, and there's another thing I'm going to tell you right up front. If you're not going to get 10 or 20 properties, don't get one. Some of the most unhappy people I know have 2 rental houses because they're doing all that crap for $400 a month. And it'd be so much better just to get a part-time job. I'm just telling you, don't even start down this road unless you're going to build out a business around it. Now, if your house is paid for and you paid it with cash, that's different. Those are different numbers. You're comfortable with it. And I will never debate that. The safest, most reliable, most profitable thing you can do is to have a rental house that's paid for. It's safer. You'll never have problems with it. But if you want to go fast, you got to have some debt, unless you're sitting on millions in cash. So these are my numbers, 40 to 50%. That's the maximum. So here we're going to start with this. Let's analyze one. The first question, what's the rent? I'm going to say the rent is going to be $1,200. That's in my market, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, routinely rents for $1,200-1,300. I went on the low side. So the house rents for $1,200. How much can you pay for it? You need to know this. You're sitting right with our wholesaler I just met, and she wants to know how much will you pay me. And well, there's 2 wholesalers. She wants to know how much can you pay for it. You need to tell the number within a few minutes. You got to know. How do you do that? You put an app on your phone, get a website. Just look for a loan calculator. Loan calculator. That's all you need. You put in the interest rate that Emily Norris gave you from Union State Bank. For me, on my rental properties, most of my local lenders will only do a 15-year note. That's just their rules. You need to know what your rules are from your lender. You get those. You don't get to make those. You get those. My lender gives me 15 years at 8% currently, roughly. So I put those numbers in my loan calculator until I get a payment of $600. And that's my budget. And no, I don't debate it. That's the best I can offer you. And if I can't do it, we'll just pass on it. So for this example, a mortgage of $63,000 at 8%, 15 years, your payment is $602. So that's my budget to buy it and renovate it, to get it rent ready and buy it for $63. And that's hard. And you got to talk to a lot of people to find that, but you will find them. And here's the difference. 6 years ago, this number was 6% instead of 8 or 9. Sometimes it's 9 now. And so the difference is 6 years ago, I could have paid $68,000 for the house, roughly. You have to do the math on your calculator. It was $67,000 or $68,000 is what I could have paid a few years ago. Now I'm having to pay less because of the interest rate. But it's still the same rule I've used since the first day, and it's never failed. It's always works. Any questions on that? I used to teach in the nuclear power school in the Navy, and the military required you to ask questions and answers at the end, but we couldn't go home until we got done. So I would always say, I've been teaching this for 3 years. I've never met a person who didn't understand it. Does anybody have any questions? That was a good way to close it up every time we'd say that. I was like, no questions, good. I checked the box that I had a question and answer session. But that's the difference. People say it's harder today. Yes, it's a little harder because you can't pay quite as much, but it's not a big difference. You're talking $5,000 difference in the purchase price, and the numbers work. And how do you find these kind of houses? Here's the beauty of it is they don't have to be sellable houses. You're never going to sell them. I'm never going to sell them. Here's a good example. I bought one in Odenville. It was built in the 1900s, old house. It had a homemade, the septic system was made out of concrete blocks. It was, that's how they used to make them in the 40s and stuff. They made them out of concrete blocks. It's not, in today's market, if I put it on for sale and somebody did a septic inspection on it, it would fail. And so it's not sellable without a new system. So it works, it's functioning, there's nothing wrong with it, it's just not up to code. That house is unsellable. I'm the only buyer in town who will pay cash for it. I bought it for $30,000 because they couldn't get rid of it without spending $15,000 on a new septic system. Those are the kind of deals. See, that septic system is working fine. There's nothing, the tenants don't know what's in the ground. It works. Those are the kind of deals you can get here. Maybe some houses with a little bit of foundation issues that they look bad, but they're not really. Maybe a crack in a wall or something that scares people off. That isn't really a structural issue. It just looks bad. Those houses, nobody will buy them, but they're great for this because you can buy them and refinance them and keep them forever. Those are just some of the examples. So here's how to get money to start. This is the number one people tell me, I don't have $50,000 to get started. Well, I didn't either, so do what I did. People are hiring, go get another job. That's the hard way to do it. I don't recommend it. It almost killed me. Here's another way you can do it. You can just buy it with a regular mortgage, and then you only need 20% down payment. So on the $63,000, kind of do what you need, $12,000, which a lot of people can take the title for their car to the credit union and get $12,000 for their car title, and they could put a down payment on a house. Then you do the same process. You renovate it, you rent it, and then you go get another mortgage at the end of it and get your down payment back. Same process. And in private lenders, we got a couple in the room, I know. How many private lenders we got? I know James, a couple? 3? There's 3. So, man, if I'd known you guys when I started, I could have saved a whole year of driving to West Oxmoor Road. I had no idea that people would give you money for that stuff. So the way the private money lenders work is they give you the money to buy the house. You get it going. They'll also help you finance the remodel and the repairs. There's rule. Everybody has their own rules, but you use their money to get the deal done, and then you go to a bank and pay them off. Basically, you don't get any money in your pocket out of it, but the people who gave you money to buy the house get paid off. That's called going from short-term loans to permanent financing. Hard money lenders and private lenders. To me, the difference is a hard money lender is a company and a private money is an individual. That's kind of the way I look at how I define those two. And because I get to speak all over the country, I speak now 3 or 4 times a year all over the country to huge groups. Now I have lenders all over the country. It's really cool. It's like we just found a lake house, $300,000. And I made one phone call on the way home in the car, and we had the money. I was like, that is so awesome. Man, if I had that, I feel like a kid in the candy store. Like, I just called this lady up, and she was like, yeah, just send me the information. I'll send it to you tomorrow. Like, that was too easy, man. It's too easy. So does it still work? People, Jay, I know you heard this. People say it's dead, right? Or BRRRR doesn't work anymore in today's market. So I just want to show you some of my recent examples of stuff that I've done in the last year or so. Again, we're doing 3 or 4 or 5 a year, every year. So I've got a lot of examples. But these are some of the most interesting ones. This is the one who we were talking to earlier, the church apartment. This was an old church building. There's actually 3 buildings on the property, all similar to this. It cost $1 million. I didn't have $1 million. None of my private lenders had $1 million. That's a lot. That's a big ask when you call somebody and ask for $1 million. That's a little different than asking for $2 million. So I had to buy this one with a construction loan and a bank loan. My local bank financed it for me. I had to put 20% down. I had to put 200 grand down. They financed the whole reconstruction. We bought this building and made it into apartments. It used to be a church building, hollow inside, and we turned it into a bunch of like 13, 14 apartment units. So I had to come up with 200 grand, and this is why I flip houses, so we have money in the bank to do these kind of things with. But I went over budget by 200 grand on top of it. So my construction loan ran out at $1 million, and I still had 200 grand to go. So I had to come out of pocket too. And I still don't know where, mathematically I shouldn't have been able to do that, but it came out of somewhere. My kids don't have any college money left, but we got it done, right? But here's the thing. Even after all the overages and spending the money on the down payment, just a few months ago, I went and got a mortgage for $1.2 million. It appraised for $2 million. So I was right on. Before I bought it, I had an appraiser tell me, what will it be worth when I finish it? And they said $2 million. I said, well, my budget's $1 million. That's my rule. And if I would have hit my original number, we would have been really good, but I went over a little bit. So I had my mortgage at 1.2. I got all the money I put in it back. So this is the biggest BRRR I've ever done on a big scale. Put my down payment money in, put my rehab money in, got it all back. So now I've got this asset in my town with no money in it. I don't have any money in it. Pretty sweet deal. I didn't hit my 50% rule because I went over budget so bad. The rents on it are roughly 14 grand a month. My mortgage is roughly 8. Almost hit my 50%. But it'll still work. I mean, the maintenance on this is going to be low for a few years because everything's new. There's no vacancy. It filled up the first month, 100%. There's never been a vacancy. So I'm hoping my expenses stay low the first few years. And if that interest rate drops 1%, I can refinance again, and now I'm at 50%. Now I've dropped $1,000 a month. So all I need is the interest rates to drop 1%, and then this hits my rules. So that's one way you can do it. And if you don't have that money, you just need to find some friends who have money and use their money. But here's a more realistic example. This is just a little old farmhouse right next to the library in Odenville. You know this house, right? Bought it for 30 grand. And people ask me all the time, how do you find houses? How do you find houses? How do you find houses? I was at the courthouse talking to a man there, and we were just talking about what we do. And I said, well, I normally just buy houses from people who don't know what to do with them. He was like, well, I got my mom's house. I don't know what to do with it. He said, it needs a lot of repair. I inherited it. I don't know what to do with it. I said, well, where is it? He said, Odenville. And I said, I live in Odenville. I said, what are you doing right now? And he said, well, when I leave here, I was going to go to lunch. We'll have lunch in Odenville. And I followed him to this house and bought it that day. The whole thing took 20 minutes. Like from conversation to contract was a half hour. You got to be ready. Because once an opportunity comes on, if you don't have the paperwork signed in 24 hours, you're not serious and you're not going to get the deal. You're just not going to get it. So I bought that in less than 12 hours. I had it under contract. I did a light rehab on it, repaired everything, just kind of updated on it, about 25 grand. I went and got my money. I went and got a permanent mortgage on it for 55 grand. And today it rents for $995 and my mortgage payment's $495. It's the same rules over. I can't say it enough. Over and over and over. This is how I started in 2013, and I've done nothing different. People ask me, my wife asked me actually, I say people, my wife asked me, are you going to flip it or rent it? I said, well, let's see what the numbers look like at the end. If this rehab would have went to 50 grand for some weird reason, this don't get to be a rental. It has to be sold. Because if you go over the 50%, you got to sell the house. That's my rule. If your rehab and your purchase go over that threshold, you don't get to keep it because it will not cash flow long term. You might think you're making money the first year or two. Think about this. If you're making $100 a month after you pay all your taxes, insurance, and all this stuff and mortgage, you think you're making $100 a month. 3 years into it, it needs a heating and air system, and it costs $7 grand. How many years of rent is it going to take? That's 70 months? 70 months to pay off that heating and air. You think you're not going to have any more problems in the next 70 months? So that's why it doesn't work, because about every 10 years, you need another $6,000 repair of some kind. And if you don't have that, because you're only making $100 a month, it ain't going to work. So anyway, I feel like I'm preaching a little bit, but you got to get this. I almost laugh out loud. I get these emails all the time saying a BRRRR opportunity. It's the ARV is 130,000. We only want 100,000. I was like, they're not doing it. That's the difference. Yes, you can get a loan for $100,000 on a $130,000 house, but it's not going to make any money on it. You're just not. It ain't going to make cash flow. So I think that's about it. Oh, here you go. One more expectation. This is where everybody drops it too. This is 3 to 4 per year is the most I've seen people do by themselves without a big team around you. And the reason you can only do 3 or 4 per year, you got to buy the house and renovate it. That takes 6 weeks, 8 weeks, sometimes 2 months to get that process completely done to where it's ready. And then you got to go get another mortgage on it, which takes about 2 weeks. So the whole thing is going to take you 3 months if you are moving at a lightning speed. If your contractor shows up every day, if your material's available, if you don't run into permitting issues, if the weather cooperates, you can get it done in 3 months. Sometimes it takes 4 to get your money. I'm talking about from the time you spend your money to the time you get it back, 3 to 4 months every time. And there's only 12 months, so you can only do 3 or 4 a year. That's just mathematically. Now, if you want to get aggressive and do 2 or 3 at a time, now you're playing with fire. You just got to be careful with the numbers. So, but here's what I want to communicate to you. In 5 years, you've got 15 to 20 houses. Now you're starting to see the math behind this whole thing. This would generate $5,000 to $6,000 per month for the rest of your life, whether you get out of bed or not. And then when you pass away, $5,000 to $6,000 per month for your children until they pass away. And then when they pass away, $5,000 to $6,000 a month for their grandkids forever. What is that worth? Is it not worth 3, 4, 5 years of just digging? Oh my gosh. And then the sales pitch that we buy into instead is, I'm going to put 40 years in at a job to get my $2,000 a month in Social Security forever. I don't know why people buy that. I've never, even as a teenager, I couldn't understand why would somebody buy into that deal. It is I feel like Donald Trump. That is not a good deal. It's 40 years for $2,000 a month. I'm showing you 5 years of hard work for $5,000-6,000 a month at a minimum. This is minimum. Plus you get a raise every year, 3-5% raise every year as rents go up, and your mortgages start to pay off. That's another benefit. All my stuff's on 15-year notes. So let's imagine you have, plus, here we go. Let's imagine I have 10 houses that are worth $100,000 each, just round numbers. I have a $100,000 mortgage on them, maybe. Let's just say that. So I owe $1 million on these 10 houses. They're on 15-year notes. Plus I'm getting the $5,000 extra. At the end of 15 years, I can go refinance them and get $1 million cash in my pocket, tax-free, from a refinance. So I started at 43. When I turned 60, I get $1 million check for no taxes. That's a pretty sweet deal too. That's on top of the monthly rent and stuff. So in 15 years, you get to go buy your farm out in the country on the waterfront property or whatever for tax-free cash. And all you did was just wait. All you had to do. And meanwhile, you're living off of them. You're living off of them for $5,000 a month, and you get $1 million bonus in 10 or 15 years. So it blows my mind why people won't do this. I just don't understand it. I feel like when I'm standing at a fast food restaurant and I see my order up there on the shelf and the person won't turn around and pick it up and hand it to me. It's like, my food's right up there. Will you just hand me the stupid food? And I look at people and say, everything you ever wanted is right here. Just turn around and pick it up. There's money available. There's real estate here. And people don't do it. It blows my mind still why people won't do this. That's why I'm so excited. I got a young friend of mine here, Garrett. He don't know anything about real estate, but he's like, he's thinking ahead enough to know maybe a 40-year corporate job is not the best plan in America. It's like, it doesn't work. How many people know anybody who retired from one job their lifetime? Didn't have to switch jobs. It doesn't work anymore, but we're still buying it. Why are we? I don't get along with my family at the dinner table, by the way. I'm that weird guy. Don't talk about jobs when Joe's around. People will tell me how they got a new better job. And I was like, really? You bought that, huh? You bought that? That's it. There's my email address. If you want to email me, if you're a wholesaler, I will buy in St. Clair County only because I don't want to drive more than 15 minutes to do anything anymore. I probably won't answer the phone the first time you call, but maybe the second or third time. But you can email me because part of my lifestyle design was I don't want to be on the phone. And all of my employees know if you make my phone ring too much, you're going to be replaced. Because they call me and I say, what would you do if you couldn't get in touch with me? And they tell me, I said, well, do that and then don't call me again. Because I'm telling you, I want the lifestyle. I worked hard for it. I designed it from the beginning. That's the reason I put in all those percentages to pay managers and employees. See, I got free for my job at 20 houses, but I still had to do a lot. I had to do a lot of the maintenance and management and all that kind of stuff. So I went to 40 houses and paid somebody $5,000 a month, and now he runs everything. And now I'm totally out of it. In fact, the people at Lowe's think I work for him. When I go in there, they'll, oh yeah, you work for the guy who buys all the stuff in here. So, yep, that's how it works. Yeah, go ahead.
Talk a little bit about how you grew and you hired your own crew and
yep.
I mean that's what a lot of times the subs don't show if you don't have your own crew.
Yep.
You can get it done.
Yep. So that was another sticking point. Who was we talking about? Alabama rental managers. I don't recommend them. They were great when we started. I'm just telling you right up front. Y'all get me in trouble if you want to. I don't recommend them anymore. But they were gouging people, including me, on maintenance costs. They'd go out to fix a dripping faucet or a clogged toilet and charge me $200-300, And I was like, that ain't gonna work. And I found out it was across the whole industry. People aren't making any money in rentals because their managers charging them so much in maintenance. So I was like, well, how can I fix that? That was my answer. I doubled my portfolio to 40 houses. I hired a full-time handyman repair maintenance guy, and that's his job. And I told my property management companies, call him. Don't call your vendors. Don't call anybody else. Call him with every maintenance issue. And now my maintenance costs are fixed every month. I know what they're going to be. They're predictable. They're controllable. So my challenge then was, he doesn't have something to do every day. And I don't want to pay people to sit home like me. So I keep 2 or 3 rehabs going. I do 3 or 4 rehabs per year, and we sell them. They're called flips. We buy them, fix them up, and sell them. They don't meet the model for BRRRR. They're too expensive. But we keep those going just so I can have all these people available when I need a rental turnover. And I've told them that right up front. We're buying these houses, renovating them, selling them for all of you to have a job. The minute this doesn't work anymore, I don't need this. We just turn it off. So they all know, we're there for them. I keep 3 or 4 full-time construction workers on payroll all the time, and I pay for them through the flip projects. So we need a project that'll sell for a $25,000 profit about every 3 months or so. 25, 30 grand profit every 3 or 4 months. That pays everybody's payroll for the construction crew. So my rental company gets free maintenance, free repairs, free everything because the flip company is paying all the expenses. So this is getting a little deep for an introductory lesson. But tax-wise, the rentals are where it's at because that $1 million property, I won't owe any taxes on that for years. You take 1.2 million is what I invested in it, divide that by 27. I can't do the math in my head. What is that? 27. Anybody got a calculator? 1.2 million times divided by 27. Can anybody do that? Am I the only one? All right, I'll do it. Yeah, 27 and a half. Huh? 4,000? Should be a little more than that, shouldn't it? Is it not? divided by 27.5. 43,000. $43,636 per year tax deduction from the income on all my rentals. So 43,600 for the next 27 years tax free. Why would you not do that? Go back. Why would you not do that? And this income will offset that $43,000 per year. What? Depreciation. Depreciation. IRS depreciation. See, according to IRS, my real estate goes down in value every year, so they let me deduct that value. But it actually goes up in value every year. It's a pretty sweet deal. So yeah, 27. You take what you invested in it divided by 27.5. That's how much you get to deduct every year from your taxes. So on that one property alone, $46,000 tax deduction every year. That blows my mind. It's like, so the rental is almost completely tax free. The flips are offset by all that depreciation because of the IRS rules. So it just runs. The whole machine just runs with almost not touching it. And it's a thing of beauty if you can get it running that way. So anyway, I encourage you to give it a shot. That's it. Any questions? Any more questions? How we doing on time? We doing okay? We got one?
What did you see Scott Jelinek? I'm sure you did.
Huh?
I'm sure you were here for the Scott Jelinek.
I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry.
Did Scott Jelinek when he came about the slow flips?
The slow flip?
You don't turn yours. Well, do you ever do that? Do you do the mortgage?
Oh yeah, the note mortgage. That is a way to eliminate. The only thing you benefit from that is you eliminate the maintenance costs. And so what she's talking about is instead of renting them, sell them on monthly payments. And if I didn't have a maintenance crew to handle all of it, that would be the way to go, because you don't have maintenance. Yeah, but you don't get to do you don't get to do the depreciation and tax benefits a lot of times either, because you're just a mortgage company at that point. So it all depends on. She's talking about you can sell these on monthly payments to end buyers for 20 and 30-year mortgages, and then you don't owe anything. You don't owe the taxes. You don't owe the maintenance. But it's just a trade-off. You get the benefit, but that means my grandkids. Yeah, but then my grandkids wouldn't inherit the properties either because they would pay off. So I'm looking at lifetimes of income, generations of income. So that's my thought on it anyway. I'm looking forward to see now I'm hitting the 13, 14 year mark. So every year properties are paying off. So I'm getting pay raises every year because those mortgage payments are all going away now. To answer your question? You good? All right, that's it. Brian, you got anything else?
Any other questions for Joe?
That's it?
All right, let's give him a big hand.